Okay, so for this video we're going to talk about the different kind of sessions that you can put on. What are they? Because we hear names and things of sessions, and I'd like coaches to have a better understanding of what that particular kind of session is. So we'll give a quick run through of kind of sessions that you can do. I'll give you little demos of what they are, and obviously how we can then put them together, and then we'll also talk about different things within the sessions to keep them flowing, keep them realistic, keep them, your tempo and close to the game if we can possibly do that. So we've got things like a technical session, which is kind of in the name that it's working with a player on their technical ability. This could be short passing, long passing, a type of ball control. Plus side to a technical session is you get a high repetition of what you're trying to work on. The downside is there's nothing variable or random or anything like that about it. So there's no competition or anything like that with involved in it. We then have what we call skill sessions. A skill session works on a specific topic without actually working on a particular area of the game. So you're not going to be working specifically with your fullbacks or your midfielders, but you might be working on possession, or you might be working on transition, something like that. A small-sided game is exactly what it is. It's a small version of the 11v11 game. The only real thing you've got to look out for when you use a small-sided game is pitch reality, as the distances on a small-sided game are not going to be as realistic as they are if you've got as you would play on a Saturday or a Sunday or whenever your 11v11 games are. We have a carousel type session, which is where you would have different stages of things put together, and players would work in each stage for a set period of time and then move on into the next part of the session. We have a wave practice, and a wave practice is exactly what it sounds like. It's a constant session going one way, generally unopposed. If you're looking at a bit of passing or a finishing session, unopposed, but always going the same way, starting at the same place, going the same way, like a wave. We then have what we call a whole part whole, which tends to mean you start your session with a match. You maybe just give the players the topic and you have no intervention into this whatsoever. You see how them players take your topic, take what you've asked them and go and put it in. You then stop your game and you take the players and you deliver the middle part of your session, which could be any of what we've just talked about around your topic. So you might have a game to start, then you might use a skill or a technical session, then you put it back into a match to see how the players cope and do get out what you're trying to get out. So that's a whole part whole. We have what we call a function. Now functions are generally when you get into your UEFA B level, where you shape the pitch to work with specific players, trying to get out specific topics, trying to achieve certain goals individually as well as within your units. And then we have a phase. Now, phase of plays are generally half pitch practice, anywhere of a defence v attack, and obviously it can be anything from a 7v7, 8v8 up to an 11v11 on a half pitch, which is what we would call a phase of play. And then obviously you have things like passing patterns, which are self-explanatory. Where passing, making patterns, they can be very constant. There's a constant in your passing pattern, or you can vary them a little bit, giving the players decisions within this. So that said, so we're going to talk around the different sessions now. Okay, so you've got to remember that they all fall into three categories of constant, variable, and random. Every session, no matter what, they all fall into a constant, a variable, and a random on the spectrum scale. So a technical session, so we might do something a little bit like this, which is short passing here, and I've just got players passing the ball, taking a touch, passing back. I'm working on how they control the ball, how they pass it, part of the foot they use, their body shape, their shoulders, their head, things like that. 1v1 defending session, player knocks it across, goes and defends 1v1. Again, there's no real opposition in there, it's a constant thing, plays, goes, defends, reset, does it again. You can have it coming this way, if obviously, so both players are working on it. Or you might go into switching play, which again is, we play out, we work on this player's receiving position, his technique in which he switches to play, receives, plays in, and then it goes again the other way without any competition, but it allows me to really work with that player's technical ability of how they control, which part of the foot they use to pass the ball, you know, things like that, their head shape, their shoulders, their movement, things like that within a technical session. So that's a constant, no real opposition, but it lets you get lots and lots and lots and lots of repetition within the session. We then have what we would call skill sessions. Now, a skill session, as I said before, is where you are working on a topic, but without actually working on a specific area of the game. So, for example, this particular one here is working on possession, and it would be 4v4 in the middle with 4 neutrals on the outside working on the team with possession. And I'm just asking them to make, say, 10 passes to score a goal. Obviously, if you lose the ball, the neutrals work with that team. So I'm working on possession, but I'm not actually working on any area of the pitch. I'm not working with any particular focus of players. Or, for example, if I wanted to work on a transition, but again, I want to work in a skill, I may work out where I've got the pitch into 3s. I've got 4 players here who are going to work with these 4 players. These 4 players are my defenders. This team might start in possession. 2 defenders will come in to press the ball. These 2 defenders will try and screen and stop the pass being played across. This team will try and keep possession for the set number of passes, for example, say 3. Then can they transfer the ball across? If that happens, the 2 defenders in here come in here to screen. These 2 defenders have to transition quickly and come in here and keep the ball, trying to win it. And they're going to try and do the same. Can they keep possession and play back across? If the defenders win it, they can have a target here or knock the ball out to get a point. So again, I'm working on a specific topic, so maybe transition, but I'm not working on an area of the pitch. I'm not working back 4 or midfield. I'm working in a general census. So that is how skill sessions tend to work. Then we have what we call small-sided games. A small-sided game is exactly what it says on the thing. So it might be, I've just sectioned my pitch and I play 8v8 in here, this going this way, that way, goal there in a small-sided pitch. Or you end up playing across the pitch this way in a small-sided game. Small-sided games are brilliant because players love them. You can get good intensity, good work rate, good effort out of them. You've just got to remember with small-sided games around pitch reality, because it's small-sided. If you've got 8v8 going on in there, your distances between your midfield players or your forwards or whichever may not be realistic to what happens on a game day. So you've just got to be careful with small-sided games that you've got pitch reality comes into focus with you when you're trying to coach within a small-sided game. We then have carousels. So a carousel would be used a bit like this. So I would set up 4 different stations and I would have different things going on within this. So in station 1, for 10 minutes, these players might be doing a rondo. In station 2, these players might be going through a passing pattern. In stage 3, I've got a 1v1 going on over here. And then in stage 4, I've got a receiving session going on. Players scanning, receiving, opening it out, receiving on their back foot. Then after 10 minutes, they all just move up the station. So within that session, I'm working on a variety of different topics, from possession to passing patterns to 1v1 defending, attacking, into receiving, all in these different kind of topics. We then have what I said before, which is our whole part whole. So our whole part whole is, as it says, we start in a match giving the players their specific topic. We then stop the session and we go into whichever of these you're working with. Might be a technical, might be a skill, might be a phase, a function, whatever it is, to work on your specific topic. Then once you're happy with that, you go back into a match, small-sided game, whatever it is, to see how they've grasped what you've just worked on. Do they apply it into the session? Do they get it? Do they understand what it is? We also then have wave sessions. So a wave practice is a session that is constantly going one way for a specific team. So in this session, I've got the X's are just passing constantly without any pressure, without any opponents, down to this end having a shot. The O's are doing the same thing, just pass, 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 without any really interference, going through some different passing patterns that they're going to go through completely on their own, and it finishes. And once the X has had a shot in here, the X's start again from this player here, pass, 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 and have a shot. O's doing the same thing. Different kind of wave pattern might be a finishing session. So in this one, I've got my 5 playing into my 4, who's going to have a little combination with my 10 to play out to my 11, who's then going to have a little dribble, and then he's going to deliver. My 9 and 10 are going to make attacking runs to try and score. Once that's done, everything resets and we play from here again. So there's just 2 different kinds of what we call wave practices as well. Now moving on, we have what we call is a function. So a function is where I have sectioned off this part of the pitch because I want to work with my 2 and my 7 around attacking down this flank, so that I can get lots of repetition down this side and force the play down this side a bit more. I've got rid of this side of the pitch. My play might start from here, and I might start into my 6, who I just want him to take 1 touch and to play to my 7, however I might want it to work. And then from there I would coach and work with these 2 specifically on their linking up and their plays and their different kind of runs and their different positions in which they're going to come in and to play. And then work with my 9 and my 10 as my secondary players on their runs to try and finish. Maybe a little bit around my 8 as well, backing up the ball, which is a type of function. Different kind of function might be, nice and quickly, is if I wanted to work with, say, my 2 centre-backs, defending centrally. I'm going to shape my pitch a little bit like this. I'm going to have my players in here, but this time I'm going to get rid of my wide players, and I'm going to have something a little bit like this, so that I can get play through the middle areas. So it's just a different view of how a function might work. So the play again start from here. Obviously I would have goals at this end for the yellow team. If they win it, can they go and put the ball through it? Allow me to work with my 2 centre-backs and my 2 holding mids. I may have a centre forward in here just to keep these honest. My fullbacks might be simply just because I want them, the restriction is to deliver from wide areas, so they deal with balls coming in from there. But that's an idea of 2 different ideas of how a function would work. And now, and a phase of play, last but not least, is exactly that, where we're going to have everybody back in on the pitch, and it's a half pitch practice. This obviously may have less than this players on it, because it may not be 11v11. You may end up with no number 10 or something for this team, however it is. But it's just half pitch practice. Trying to maybe work on what I was just working on. So may put a condition that if they score a goal using these two combining, it's worth 2. Whereas if they score in any other one, it's worth 1. Just so that the phase function I've gone into, can I see if I can get it a little bit? But you've got to remember, if you are going to put conditions like this on, that the players keep to the realism. Because when you do put things on like this, players might have an opportunity to play here. But what happens is they end up trying to force the ones that are not on, because they're going to get twice as much for doing that. So as a coach, that's just something to be wary of. If you are going to do a phase and you're going to put conditions in, make sure that you keep the realism. Obviously, I'd want that player to be playing that one in that situation and not that one. So if you do go from function to phase and you put your conditions in, you keep it so that you try and keep the realism is what you've got to guard against when you're losing a phase. And then obviously an 11v11 is standard what it is, full pitch, playing 11v11, working on your topic. So that's just some ideas of what different sessions are. And now you've got to think about within your sessions, how do you put these together? So as I said before, there are 3 kinds of sessions. There's your constant, your variable and your random. And you've got to work out your trade-off within these sessions. Is the constant session without any opposition going to do you well enough versus putting in, say, a skill session where there's opposition and it's a bit variable, but you may not be able to get in and coach specific technical work with that with players. So that's something really important to remember about when you're doing your sessions. Your trade-offs. Are you going to get plenty of repetition out of your technical session, but you're going to lose some game realism? But is that worth it? And if it is to you, then you do your technical session because you think your players really, really need a lot of technical work. If you've got good technical players, you may not bother with the technical session quite so much. You might use it as a little bit of a warm-up, but use your skills or your phase or your functions or anything far more. So that's something else to think about, your trade-offs within sessions. So now we're talking about the different things you can put together in a session. So if I'm going to do things like phases and functions, things to think about are your start points. Is it always going to be from one player on the byline, on a halfway line, just passing in? Is that what you're going to be doing? Might you have your goalkeeper take a goal kick, bring it down and play from there, just to maybe have a bit more realism rather than it just constantly being from the same start point? Might you use the 3 picture technique, which means you have 3 constant pictures that you want to bring out and you're going to work those 3 pictures within your session? There are obviously sessions can be built up to go from constant to variable. So for an example, you might have the wave practice might start without any so the wave finishing practice, for example, might start without any opposition whatsoever within it, but then I might add 2 defenders and maybe even a fullback. So now I've put a little bit of variable in there, so it's gone from being constant to variable. So you can always look at different ways in which you can progress the session, so it's not just one or the other, but you're getting a little bit of both. But again, the trade-off is, if I go from constant to variable, is that right? Have I got the technical level that I need to do it? Again, it's all working out your own trade-off within the sessions and what you need to do. So I hope this video was useful. If you want to subscribe to my channel, as I will put in more content, just trying to help out all coaches out there with everything I've picked up and my experiences onto the footballing world.